Let's jump into making some methods. This particular program is going to capture a name and an age from the user via the scanner, and we're going to pass that name and age into a method, and from that we'll return a string that returns some sort of message. So I've already got in this program the scanner and a variable where I'm capturing the name and the age into the appropriate variable. My method placement is very important whenever I'm dealing with classes and classes that have multiple methods. If you look here, this public static void main is already a main method. This method is the one that the virtual machine looks for whenever it gets ready to run the program. So we need to not be inside of our public static void main. So in Eclipse, if you kind of mouse down, you can find where that ending curly bracket is, and we want to be outside of the main method. However, we still want to be inside of the class. So whenever I scroll down and I find that last little curly bracket there, this is going to be the sweet spot. This is where I need to put my method. I need an access modifier, which tells the method where it can be used. Ours is going to be a public method so that we can use it inside of this class, or we could use it inside of another class if it called it. And we'll get into that a little bit more later whenever we start dealing with making our own classes. The next keyword that we need is static. And static is one of those special modifiers that means that the method belongs to the class and not to the object of a class. And we will talk more about that whenever we create classes. But for now, if your class has a public static void main in it, you'll need your method to have public static and then the return type in there as well. So just notice that and make note of that and apply that. If you have public static void main, your methods are also going to have public static so that they belong to the class and not the objects that are created from a class. Then we need our return type. This method is going to return a string, and we're going to pass in the name and the age, and then we'll return the string back to the main method to print it out to the console. Then I need a good name for my method. Typically they will begin, if they're multiple words, they'll begin with a lowercase, and then the second word will be uppercase, followed by 2 parentheses. Then I need opening and closing brackets. Now inside of these 2 parentheses, I'm going to put in my parameters. So those are the items that I'm going to pass into the method so that they can be utilized in the method. So I'm going to pass in my string, and I'm going to just call it in, and I'm going to pass in my int, and I'm going to call it a. So you'll see here in a minute, whenever we get ready to call this method, we're going to pass in the name of the variables from up here inside of our main method, but whenever we're going to use them inside of our method, we're going to reference them by in and by a. In and a are considered local variables to the method. You'll see that Eclipse is currently complaining because this method says that it's going to return a result of the type string, and I don't have it returning a string yet. So the first thing I like to do is make Eclipse stop complaining. So I will create a string variable, and I'm going to call it message and have the method return message. So once I create a string and tell it to return a string, the method will stop complaining. All right, now that I'm in here, let's code the method to do the work. So we're going to have it take the name that's passed in, and it'll be declared locally as in, and then we'll just put together a message to return to the console. So inside of our string message variable, we're going to create the string hello, and we're going to take the name that is being passed in, and it'll be treated as in inside of this method. And we're going to plug that in here, followed by an exclamation point, and then we'll say your, and we'll pass in the age here and print out years old. And then finally, this method will return to the console a string. So we have to have a way to capture that string. So let's go ahead and call our method up here. We're going to use the name of the method, pass in our variables. So our variables take a string and then an int. So my string variable is name and my int variable is age, followed by a semicolon. And right now, this will, whenever I get done calling next int or capturing the value inside of age, it will actually go down here and it will run this method. But we won't see anything written to the console. So let me show you. One thing I like to do to make sure that the flow of my program is working is I'll put in these print line statements so you can see the flow of the program. So if you look down here at the console, enter your name, enter your age, and you'll see after I enter the age, it's coming down here, it's calling the compose message method, passing in name and age, and so it just hops down here and it prints out in a method. So it is kind of creating the string as well, but I haven't captured it inside of my main method. So there's a couple different ways I could do that. I could create a string variable and set the results that's coming back from the string as message. I could also just print out the results of compose message. And I forgot to sys out what was in message. There we go. So here's option 1 and here's option 2 for how we can get the string out of our method into the console. So we'll run it again. You'll see I'm down here in the method. I run it. It's capturing the method or the message. It's creating that message, and then we're returning that variable, that string up here, and we're capturing it inside a message up here. So message is a local variable inside the main, and message down here is a local variable inside of compose message method. They don't relate. They don't have to be the same. So if you look here, I can change it to M, and you'll see that it's a different name. And actually, if I try to access message inside of this method, I'm going to get an error. It'll say it's out of scope, or I need to figure out what the variable is. So that's one clue that you can tell that they are local variables. So after this method runs, captures the results into string M, prints it out, it comes down here to the next line, and it knows it's getting ready to print something out yet, but it doesn't know what. So it grabs, it goes down here, passes in the name and the age again, and it composes the message, comes down here, and that's why we see in the method printing again, because this method is being run twice, being called twice. So it collects all the information, composes the message string, and then it returns that string up here to our console, and that's why we see it written out again.